Hey everybody, this is Ed Mann, the executive producer of The Real Brady Bros. This is a brand new Q&A number 2. Right here with me, Christopher Knight and Barry Williams. Hi guys.
Hey.
What do we got? What do we have this week, Ed?
Well, this week we have a plethora of people to get on our Facebook page, which you may not have seen, folks. So if you want to check it out, it's really great. The handle for it is @RealBradyBros, @RealBradyBros. And you'll find so much stuff. But particularly, you'll find a section where you can ask questions. And this seems to be incredibly popular amongst your listeners, guys. So let's jump into it.
And I'm amazed by that because after 53 years, you would have thought that all questions have already been answered.
You would have thought that someone would have been able to answer these questions, but no.
Many of them are being asked like the second time around now. They forgot the
And we still can't
the
answer them,
answers.
some of them.
Let's start. Heather asks, I'm in my 50s. I do not recall any scandals, whether it be crime or drugs or anything from the Brady kids as opposed to other shows with child actors. I don't know which show she's talking about, but we won't go there. How did the six of you manage to keep your lives so private?
Good question. Well, actually, it's not. It's not all that it's that private. I just don't think we had run-ins with the law, particularly, which doesn't mean that, well, with the kind of invasion of our personal privacy now, we might not have escaped everything. Certainly, we had our growing periods and our wild child periods. Or I could direct you to Maureen McCormick's book, Here's the Story. That'll kind of round out that picture. But by and large, we didn't get caught.
Well, I mean, that's not, it's partly true, but not entirely fair as well. I do really think that all things considered, we all turned out rather well. I mean, there's not a lot of ongoing trauma.
Well, largely, if I could interrupt, largely you guys had pretty solid family backgrounds.
Right.
Not Brady family backgrounds, but your own family background. They gave you this, bedrock where you weren't just going to run around and act like fools.
I mean, I had a turbulent household, but the reality was that the Bradys actually, as a surrogate family, actually functioned as one, as sort of an example of a working family, even though it was cobbled together by professionals. It helped me. It helped me.
That's interesting.
Recognize that maybe I was missing something at home, but it helped me as I became an adult. If I was missing something in that environment, actually, it was supplanted by that which I experienced, felt, learned on the Brady Bunch, and I wanted to make that mention that our environment was rather unique. I mean, I wouldn't say that normally you would health through an entertainment career as a child, it would be a good strategy. But in our case, it actually, it worked to my benefit because, the show was about kids. It was an environment in which we were treated respectfully, professionally, but it was always understood that the environment needed to be healthy for us. And there was a lot of support around. a lot of adult supervision. Barry probably didn't like that. Certainly.
Well, being older, yeah, Barry.
We didn't know how much I needed it, and it was there.
Did you feel, Barry, that perhaps that being the older child, that there was a bit of a rebellion to some of this sort of family ethos that they were presenting? You were looking to maybe break out of that?
No, I was rebelling, just being a kid altogether and trying to take on responsibility and be an adult. Chris makes a good point about the functionality of and the interaction of our cast being supportive. It was stabilizing.
Thank you. That's the word.
For everybody. And we were in very, very challenging situations sometimes because of the amount of the workload. And it wasn't just a television series. We were making records and we were rehearsing shows and we were touring and we had public appearance demands. So there were a lot of things that we relied on one another to pull us through. The great news was there were 6 of us going through the similar experience together. And so we could, but at different stages of our lives, so that we could help kind of balance that. And that was, I think that was probably the biggest factor in being able to survive what is a very sort of unnatural and unusual childhood.
Now, that being said, and how wholesome our environment was, the times were different. I don't believe, Barry, there was even a National Enquirer when we were filming. That would come to life sometime right after that.
I think it's been around a while. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
Crazy
maybe
as it
I'm
was,
wrong
it was
with
like Teen Beat or something.
Well, there was Teen Beat, but there wasn't as much desire or none really of the peering into your life. The lack of privacy that one as a celebrity confronts today is on a whole different scale than it was back then.
Interesting.
There wasn't as much outlet for that information.
Right.
It was later in the 70s and the 80s that all of a sudden others became aware that there was a lot to sell there.
Sure.
I like to think of it this way, and that is it. There was a time, and we were in it, that you would go to work, and whether it was a personal appearance, a public appearance, or whether it was the set, you would go to work. Then when you went home, then you were just at home and yourself. So there was a professional persona and there was a private persona, and they weren't blended together like they are today.
Mentioning sets, this is interesting. This is a question that comes from David. Wants to know if you guys could talk more about the sets, how large the actual set was, because as most people know, when you see something in television, and the spatial differences don't quite relate between what you see on TV and what's in real life. How big was it, and what was it like to arrive on the set every day?
Well, it's interesting he's asking this question. I'm wondering whether or not David had seen our HGTV A Very Brady Renovation,
so,
because in the renovation, which is numerous, I think we had 6 episodes. There's a lot of effort to rebuild the set as a home. The dimensioning of the set being explicitly represented in the home that we were building. Sets are the same size as a normal home would be, and this house wasn't. I mean, it's not like we're miniature. You can sense the scale of the room by us in it, and in fact, I doubted that. In fact, we could build this home as the set because of the height restriction. That staircase was rather large.
But going back to the time of the taping, though, going back to the time of the 60s and 70s when you taped it, that wasn't in the house. Clearly, that was in a studio. Right. Were the sets comparable to what you guys built in the HGTV house?
They were, yes. But here's a way to think of it. It is the largest soundstage on the Paramount Studios lot. Our set took up the entire soundstage, and nothing was on top of itself. Everything was on one level. So the boys and the girls' rooms, even though they connected, were at a different place, not upstairs. So it's all spread out. That backyard was the entire back of the soundstage. And it was so intricately put together that when we took breaks, they wouldn't break down our sets. They would leave them.
Well, I mean, what Barry's saying is not just breaks. I mean, we would end for a season, and knowing that we're coming back for the next, they'd leave the set up. They wouldn't rip it down. Normally what happens is your sets are removed and then somebody else is renting that stage. But it was such a large, involved set to build that it wasn't deconstructed. In fact, you'll notice that it appears on other series of the time, like Mannix and Mission Impossible.
Right,
yeah, they use it.
Yep. Yeah, it was a set they needed to get them the bang for the buck out of.
I mean, the whole backyard, as Barry was saying, was contiguous. The driveway, rolls down, and inside of that backyard, you can look back at the rooms that are the family room, the kitchen, the living room, and if you ever had a camera angle that shot, like the volcano episode, shooting with those rooms off the patio in back of you, they had to put in that fourth wall that was never there when you were inside of the rooms. They did have a fourth wall if they'd ever needed it, and rarely did they place up a fourth wall. They tried to shoot it always without having to do that, because that's what took all the time.
Edward asks, and this is for both you guys, that many times when the Bradys are coming home from school, they come through the back fence. Are they coming from an alley, or are they cutting through someone's backyard? What happened there?
Well, perhaps Ed hasn't noticed when looking at the house, the elevation of the house. Every time you come back from a commercial, you see it. There's a driveway on the left side of the house, looking at the house, that you drive down. The garage is in the back, as we depicted on the show. And when you see a car driving up into the backyard, into the carport, that is from the front of the house where the driveway is. that is the way you would walk into your backyard. Now, I don't know where Ed lives and whether or not these type of homes are common. It sounds like they're not, but they are out here, whereby you have a house and then you have a driveway that runs down the side yard into the backyard. And that is how Bobby, Cindy, and anybody who's coming in through the family room or the kitchen has got there. They walk down the driveway into the backyard.
This, Chris, is a really good question, and it also brings us to a really good point. One of the things I so much enjoy about this, because I think we remember things differently sometimes. So let me run this by you and see if, because I don't have an image of people coming in from the back, but I do know that behind the swing set on the right-hand side and back toward the back, there was an opening and that we would use to go back and forth to our dressing rooms and our schoolroom and that kind of a thing. And I'm wondering if we didn't sometimes let Marcia or Jan or us, somebody, characters, come in like from after school from there.
I think you're right. I misunderstood the question.
And I had never questioned what would have been on the other side of that, other than maybe a gate or something like that, or cutting through someone's yard or coming down the side yard. An alley would seem kind of likely.
Well, yes, that's what I'll paint for you. And Ed, I'm sorry, you're right. I mistook your question, because you do mention fence, and the fence that now Barry is reflecting on was around the backyard, and sometimes. I don't know if we ever depicted somebody coming in from the side, right there by where the window was.
No.
Of the
it's
family,
down toward the back,
but the very back fence where the doghouse was,
on the other side,
or near that area. I would assume, though it was never pointed out, that we do live on a street with an alley behind us, so that it's serviceable from the back, and that's why. Or where they'd walk in. Now that makes no sense, and I know the house that they tried to build the set from, depicted by the elevation that they use when they come back from commercials, sits on a wash, a river, the LA River actually. So there was no alley behind the house, and it makes no sense if you had an alley behind your house, your driveway would be from it, because you would save that entire part of the yard and wouldn't have to put a driveway down. But that's what it was depicted as, that there was something behind the house, and it would have been.
I know in the home that I did grow up in, if you walked up the driveway, there were three different doors that you could go in. You could come in a side entrance, you could come in the front door, you could come in the back door, you could even come in through the garage. So I guess I never even thought about it. Didn't question it.
So you had a home that had a driveway down one of the sides. The garage was sort of in the backyard or on the side yard.
It was on, it was on the side, but it was a kind of a winding driveway. And as you came up and when it wound around, then you could see the whole entire house. And there were doors, sliding doors and doors.
But you didn't live on an alley.
No.
Right. So
Not that that's a bad
I have lived
thing.
on an alley. And on an alley, it means you can enter the house either from the street or the alley. An alley is just another street, a little more private. So your house is between two streets, and the back street is the alley. And I would assume that is, in fact, where Bobby and Cindy had been before coming through the gate. We have to assume, though, because it was never expressed.
We have time for one more. Kelly, spelled with an I at the end, Kelly, asks, which cast member was or is most like their character, in your opinions?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think, in many ways, I think Eve Plum is very much like Jan, very Jan.
In what way? In what way? Where does she resemble her?
Well, she's thoughtful. I think she is kind of protective of her space, middle child kind of thing. I think that her expressions are very, very much in line with, who she is as demeanor, I guess is what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
None of us were acting a whole lot. We were, especially me, there wasn't really capacity there, perhaps, for that at that time. So it was more or less us that they were writing to over time. Our personalities are in the characters. I mean, in answering that question, I'd say, to me, maybe it's Maureen. The least like their character is
No
an
doubts.
easier question to answer.
That would be
Cindy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? You came to that conclusion rather rapidly.
Knowingly. Yeah, because everybody else, it's kind of, you could pick I mean, it's fair to say, any one of us 5, other than Susan, are the most like our characters. I mean, I think it would be fair if you asked 5 different people and you got 5 different responses. The one person, though, who is most unlike their character, and you wouldn't know it, was Susan, because she really didn't like being Cindy because of how Cindy was depicted, especially over time.
Yeah, with the pigtails and she did have the speech impediment, but she was growing out of that, and this all sweet little charming. It was Shirley Temple, and she just got tired of it. She got tired of the that impression that she was giving.
There's a funny little story that happened I believe it was our first year, and we're all really just getting to know each other, during this period of time. And so it stuck with me because it's one of these moments that made me realize who, like getting to know Susan, who she is. But at times we would have guests on our stage, that either were friends of somebody or had to be friends of somebody. Yet we didn't have tours on our lot, not at that time. So I remember there was somebody young or near our age, 7, 8, 9, who was with their guardian or parent touring and watching what was going on. And it was in the summertime, so we weren't really in school, but Susan was in the kitchen, which was at that point not being photographed. And she was using something to write with, a pencil, a pen, crayon, something. And she was on the table writing, and she overheard the little girl say, "Oh, look, she can write." It was absolutely offensive to Susan. And now she's 6 years old and she's going off. What do they think I am?
That's great.
I'm not stupid. And I guess she associated that with the lisp and all the cute little stuff that she had to do. And so she was always aware of her being much smarter than the character she was playing.
That's terrific. Guys, thanks so much. This has been Q&A number 2 of the Real Brady Bros. We're going to have questions and a place to ask them up on the site at Real Brady Bros, and we invite you to do so. Please enjoy the upcoming podcasts. At the moment, in fact, we're in the middle of the Hawaii trilogy, and by the time this airs, I think it'll be between 2 and 3. So we invite you to join us. You can get it wherever podcasts are found, the Real Brady Bros. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.